Ready? Just
Yeah,
clearing my throat for the cold open.
it that's why they call it a cold open because you
Usually it's a cold.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that sounds more
Um,
fluey, so
yeah,
I probably just spoken.
essentially.
Yeah.
But more importantly, South Africa needed 30 from 30 and lost. Thoughts?
Bumrah's pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, the World Cup's over. India won. Well done, India. Um, South Africa, India. What India won by 7 runs. Um, we spoke yesterday, and you wanted a good game. Was this a good game?
It was. I think this is the best game from the World Cup. I think it had probably the best partnership. It had the best individual bowling, the best like battles between batter and bowlers, the best catch.
Yeah,
Yeah, good
yeah,
game.
yeah. It's almost like they are the two best teams in the tournament, and it's
Playing
it's
on a pitch that was made specifically for a good cricket match.
yeah. It was a really good pitch. To be fair, it offered a lot for everything. That if you, it looked initially like it was going to be flat because India started off quite crisply, but then there's points in the game where it felt as though it was good for bowlers, but then times good for batting. Like the game was at such a pendulum the entire time up until about maybe the 16th over of South Africa's innings where it just all fell apart. Um, but yeah, it was a good game, a good end to a tournament that's kind of felt a bit meh. Um, and yeah, it's just good to see a quality opposition and quality matchups um in a good game. I guess we'll just go innings by innings and then we can go over the bigger stuff towards the end. I've already mentioned the South Africa needing 30 from 30, and I just can't understand. Um, right, so India decided to bat first. I believe they won the toss. If anyone, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. So India decided to bat first, and posted 176 for 7, which felt like a lot, especially for a final. Runs on the board, good stuff. They started pretty well, um, with Kohli, especially. I think they got 15 off the first over or something off Janssen.
Yeah,
Um,
they're about 20 plus from the first two, so there is
yeah,
positive start.
it felt a bit ominous, didn't it? I think I was sort of like, oh, they're going to absolutely get like 200 plus here. But then South Africa pulled it back really well, and reduced India to 34 for 3. Pant going out for a duck, Sharma out for 9, and Surukumi Yadav only out for 3. And that felt, we were messaging at the time, and I said, oh, another wicket here will feel a bit ooh, but you saying it already felt a bit ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it kind of did, but then you have a kind of, I guess, unlikely hero of the innings in Axar Patel, getting a very quick fire 47, 1 4 and 4 6s. Um, he's gone up and down the order a fair bit, but I say unlikely hero because I just feel like that's such an unlikely person to turn to in his innings to get you out of trouble. I guess that's maybe being disingenuous. I just wouldn't have expected it.
No, like maybe we're not familiar with Axar's game, but
Yeah,
coming into the World Cup, I would have thought of him as a bowler,
yeah,
not even bowler first, like just bowler.
yeah.
And he's coming in at what, five?
Came at 5, yeah.
Yeah. And like in the partnership that needed to happen, Axar took it to South Africa.
Yeah.
Kohli was the one that still offered shots, but he was digging in and he only really accelerated towards the end of the innings,
Hmm.
pretty much as he got his 50.
Yeah.
And he was allowed to do that because Axar at the other end was just on it.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah. Yeah.
incredibly positive, some great shots.
Yeah, he has been. There's been a couple of games that I've seen him come up and down the order. I think he did it a couple of times in the Test matches against England. Pretty sure did it against Pakistan in this tournament. But I just can't really ever remember anything. I guess if we just want to do comparisons, it's the kind of player that England are so desperately trying to find from like a Sam Curran or something, isn't it? That kind of player who can get those quick fire runs and wrestle the momentum back and that kind of stuff.
But
But we're
you
not going
say
to talk
that
about England.
India have 11 of the,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
like maybe not Arshdeep or,
yeah, I'd say their bottom three of Kuldeep and Arshdeep
yeah,
and Jasprit are kind of, you could wrestle out between who's going to bat 11 out of those usually. Um,
although hasn't Bumrah been doing like
Bumrah
the
every now
IPL
and again
like
will randomly whack one. Yeah, yeah. He got like 28 off broad over or something like that, or 30 a couple of years ago. Who knows? But in a final match winning situation, when you've got a top, especially a top eight at least, um, who can do a lot. And like Jadeja's not really done anything this tournament, and they've still been absolutely fine. Dubé as well at the end, 27 off 16. That really kind of wrestled the momentum as well. Because I think, yeah, they were Kohli got out on 18.5 overs when they were 163 for five, and then they still managed to get up to 176 by the end of the last over. So that's in the terms of the game, that's quite big. That's probably bit of a difference with the game is won and lost. There's many different times of that, but I think Janssen especially going at 12.2 and over in this game. I'm not really sure why he bowled his full four, especially when you had Maharaj only bowled three, and Shamsi only bowled three as well. I would have thought you probably would have turned back to one of them, especially Maharaj already bowling two in the power play. Um, I would have thought he would have bowled out considering the way he bowled there, but is what it is. Jansen has been pretty good all tournament, so I guess they hoped he would come back. But yeah, going for 49 off four isn't going to help you win many games. Um, I guess though the main talking point will be Kohli. He is the main character of these kind of games, so he has arrived. Um, how do you think he played, or how would you rate how he played? I think it was. I don't know if I would compare it quite to how Klaasen played. Like for me, it just showed the kind of wealth of experience and skill that Kohli has. That he obviously knew in his mind what kind of score that needs to aim at. Wickets were going around him. He would take the risk towards the end, but he wasn't going to give his wicket away until it was just literally just going all out. Whereas Klaasen, I felt, had won the game and didn't necessarily need to take such a wild, slash at a wide ball, for example. Yeah, how would you rate King Kohli, I suppose?
it was kind of the opposite energy he had to playing England. Like
Yeah,
England, he was trying to force it a lot, but this just felt like regular Kohli, like unfazed by everything going around him.
yeah,
And if there weren't wickets falling, he'd probably have played in the same way if Rohit was there with him all the way or if Pant was there.
yeah,
It just felt like a classical, classy innings, nothing
yeah.
outrageously T20-ish,
No,
just good batting.
yeah. Like, yeah, I think it had that sense when they're three down that it was kind of not necessarily him going to his bunker like, in England would, but like the sense that he knew that if he got out at that point, that was probably the game over. So he needed to bat pretty much the innings to try and get up to a score that they could defend. So there's a lot of differences in the game and all that kind of stuff, but I just think his game management just showcased why he is such a good player. And even after such a, you know, poor tournament and run of form, that's why he is one of the best in the world still. Um, and everyone was saying don't write off Kohli, and then obviously he comes and gets player in the match because he is main character energy. So um yeah, it was always going to come at some point, and of course it came in the final. Um yeah, and obviously he did his kind of full repertoire of shots towards the end. One of the sixes down the ground was very kind of classic Kohli. Um but yeah, good player.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
said to you, messaging like the wicket falling feels like it's setting up Kohli.
Exactly, yeah, it's a Kohli
This is his
narrative.
podium.
Yeah,
Like he's not scored all tournament. Yeah, he's
yeah.
going to do it now, isn't he?
Exactly. And that's the kind of testament to this team as well, isn't it? That, where they managed to win every other game without him. And, they've managed to win games without Jadeja coming to the party too much. And Dubé's not really done an awful lot all tournament, but then he gets a crucial 27. So it's just, the a very, very good team. Again, we said yesterday that, and it just kind of showcased again. And I thought 176 was always going to be too many, but it didn't feel like it because we're going to jump straight into South Africa's innings. Um, and there's a lot of parallels, I think, between the India innings that they started pretty badly. They were 12 for two. Um, and it felt like it could be curtains quite quickly. Bumrah pretty similar to the wicket he got off Salt the other day. Just bowled instead of a in ducker, an outie ducker to Hendricks at pace and just clipped the top of off stump was just a ridiculous ball. Um, just to really set the tone initially. We just sang all his praises yesterday, but just you can't play that. I don't. It doesn't matter who you are. I don't think that at that kind of context of the game, the pace, the speed, the swing, just good.
I mean, it's like his wicket to Janssen as well. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
outside off and it's hit leg.
yeah. What
You're
can you do?
you're bowling a spin esque delivery
Yeah,
90 miles an hour or something like
it's yeah
it.
ridiculous.
You're not real. You
He isn't. But again, it's again similar to what we talked about yesterday. That game after game, he will get you two for and not go from any. And he bowled 4 overs in this game, 2 for 18. And it's like that's just a classic Bumrah, performance. And doesn't matter what the occasion, he'll just perform time and time again. He's just a very special bowler. Um, but yeah, I think South Africa never felt out of the game apart from when they were two down quite early because then you had Quinton de Kock and Stubbs put on a cute little partnership. They got up to 70 and then Stubbs played this really bizarre shot, which just reminded me of like players before T20 cricket had evolved. And it just took like overcompensating, like going way far outside the off stump to try and sweep a ball that if it just stayed where he was initially, it would have been a normal sweep. Um, it felt like that could be a momentum switch because he was batting very nicely with Quinton. Um, but again, I think I messaged you at the time. It almost felt it could be a table turn either way. Table didn't know what it was doing um, because it meant that Klaasen then had about 10 overs to bat, which should have won them the game. Um, but I guess we'll talk about Klaasen in a sec. Anything about Stubbs or I guess Quinton, I suppose, are the ones who would have been out before we get to Klaasen.
I think it kind of shows a difference between the two teams in that neither of them went on when a couple of Indian players like oh god, I can't even remember his name now. Not fucking yeah, Axar.
Yeah.
Axar didn't get his 50, but he got basically a 50.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's only got 8 more runs than De Kock, but
Yep.
that's about what they won by.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
But it
margins.
like it just feels like India have more match winners throughout their team, and if like
Yeah,
looking
it's
at the South African scores, it kind of looks like that because there's a couple of starts. Like Miller got a okay 21, but he's getting it off 17 balls, which is when he's coming in at the
he had a
time when
bit
he's
too much
coming
to do
in.
at the end,
It
I think, really, yeah.
yeah, like maybe he wanted Miller to come in before Klaasen, and Klaasen's putting more pressure on a bit closer to the end,
Yeah, I mean,
but like you can't take away from the decision to put Klaasen in when he did, when he had the madness of an innings that he did have.
yeah, Klaasen had to come in. I think Quinton, in what probably is going to be. Sorry, my dog's just tried to like 10-pin bowl a tennis ball down the hallway. Um, Quinton, in what's probably going to be his last game for South Africa, it felt like he was very much trying to play the Kohli innings, in that he was trying to anchor back deep, and he was going along about a similar kind of run rate or strike rate, should I say? Um, I think she hit. It's got a strike. Um, but and then it was when he got out, he hit that 4 or 6. It was after off AaDil, where he's been very strong in the past of kind of paddling it round over fine leg, and then they immediately put the man back at fine leg, and then he played the same shot again, just got caught, and it's sort of like you feel that players, I guess if you someone like Kohli who just wouldn't play that shot in that instance, that he's got the boundary, he's got the run rate down. Okay, I'll play another shot. But the fact that he just went for it again, even though the trap was very obviously there, um, obviously he'll just be disappointed. But you just thought like I was watching all the players and you just felt like they wanted it so bad. Like when Stubbs was out, hey, you saw Dick Cock just absolutely like pummel his bat with his fist, just like, what are you doing? Just and Klaasen, when he hit a couple of sixes, just was like, just like that. You could see it in the eyes that they were just like desperate for this. So they'll be, yeah, for the Cock to just paddle that round to find egg will be really disappointing for him. Um, but I guess, yeah, the main talking point now would be that Klaasen innings, which was mental. Like, looked like he was playing on a completely different pitch to everyone else so far in the game because Kohli batted well, Axar batted well, De Kock had batted okay, he had stubs, but then Klaasen came in and just some of the shots, especially kind of over cover, and the ones that went on the roof were just
That's not
ridiculous, I
not
guess.
one, it's ones, it's plural.
Ones, yeah, 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 true. Um, yeah, and he got was it 25 off Axar Patel in that over, I think.
Yeah, something like
Um, yeah, and he just completely the game was down to 30 off 30. And then soon after 27 or 28, and it just felt like, oh, he's won them the game. How can you come back from that over? You got 6 wickets in hand. It just such a brutal, clean striking of an innings. Um, but before we go on to the negatives, have you got any more positives?
that. They were, you said towards the start of the innings, that's when they felt like they were well behind, but
Yeah,
they did really well to get to a position where they looked like they were the favourites to win.
yeah, yeah,
And like at that point, it seemed like the De Kock innings, the Stubbs innings were good enough for that.
yeah, 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 for sure.
Partly because they had the lunatic Klaasen innings,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and then
So, yeah, and then it
um,
all
and
went
then
down. Yeah, the
yeah,
wheels came off. Because yeah, they should. I would say India have been exceptional with the ball in those last 4 overs, but with a team like South Africa, of the power and skills they have, needing a runner ball off 5 overs with 6 wickets in hand, you should walk it. Like, I know you've got 2 overs of Bumrah, but you should be getting the runs elsewhere, surely. So when you have Klaasen get out to Pandya with a really just wide ball, I guess he's pushing it wide and trying to force him out there. But I think Pollock was talking on commentary at the time, or staying, um, that it's kind of a criticism of Klaasen over the years that he doesn't rein it in and he doesn't just kind of, finish the job or bat through. And it was just showcased again here. Like, as soon as they said that, he then edges one straight through to Pan. Um, and that was the situation. If he'd batted another 2 overs, and waited for the right ball to hit out of the park, they would have, coasted it. Um, but it's just, yeah, it was just a wild shot to play when you're so ahead of the game. You had that kind of bit before where Pant went down injured
mhm,
with his knee, which obviously broke up the. I'm not, saying anything crazy about that as if like it was on purpose, but like that just broke up the flow of the game like massively. That the momentum was fully in South Africa, and then it stopped for about 5 minutes, and then he just plays a wild shot and is caught behind. That to me is a turning point, obviously. Um, because even with Bumrah still to play, when you've got Klaasen, hitting it as cleanly as he was with Miller at the other end, you'd back them both to get 30 off 30. But he didn't, he was out, and then that over of Pandya only goes for 4 runs, which is crazy considering he went for 10 as first. Um,
like
would
you're
you agree?
yeah, like at the time when Pandya is coming on, you're thinking like why weren't India like thinking more towards selecting another proper seamer?
Yeah,
Because Jadeja and I think Axar both
yeah,
went quite heavy for runs
yeah,
this inning.
yeah, yeah.
And like Arshdeep and Bumrah were fucking on it. Like they were going at
Oh,
like
for sure.
fours and fives.
Yeah.
And like I know Pandya got like 4 wickets in the end,
Three.
but yeah, but like he wasn't really threatening. Like even in the last over,
No.
he had that really one really wide.
And the one that got Miller was a
Yeah.
full toss. Like,
Yeah. Like the Klaasen one isn't a particularly good ball. It's more the
no.
batting mistake. It feels weird to say that about the bowler that kind of won them the
Well,
game for
yeah,
the
yeah, for
wicket.
sure.
But
I
like he
guess, yeah,
wasn't really a threatening bowler or like like bringing the runs back in the same way that Bumrah or Arshdeep
yeah.
were.
No, I'd agree.
Not
Yeah,
that there are many bowlers that do that. So like for the
Yeah.
selection, like maybe drop one of that. You can't say Axon now, then you would have probably been dropping Jadeja.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But then
No, yeah.
then you're like dropping Jadeja for a World Cup final, which is a difficult thing to
Yeah,
do.
we should
But
never do.
like a third seamer in this situation
Yeah,
would have
like a
been,
Siraj, yeah, definitely.
yeah, that would have been like great.
Yeah.
Didn't end up mattering, but
Yeah, it could have done though. It could have been it should have been
yeah,
basically like South Africa should have won that like 30 or 30. That should be it. Like that I think this has got to be right up there with, the biggest kind of South Africa choking, if you will. Like it was just that the game was done. Like again, we were talking while it was happening, and they had forced Rohit's hand to be like he has to bowl Bumrah now. He can't, otherwise the game is gone. Obviously, then Bumrah bowls exceptionally. I think he only goes for 4 or 5 runs in his last 2 overs or something ridiculous. Um, but if they hadn't been of lost those wickets, that wouldn't necessarily have been too much of an issue. You can afford to go at 4 or 5 off Bumrah if Klaasen and Miller can then just get the runs at the other end. I mean, it was a runner ball. They didn't need to do anything silly. I just couldn't really believe what was happening. The fact it went from 30 off 30 and then suddenly it was 20 off 10 or something. It's like, what's happened?
yeah,
Like, I just can't understand it. I mean, India bowled exceptionally well. Arshdeep and Bumrah definitely did. And yeah, Pandya did obviously bowl well to get three for, but I think, yeah, the spells, especially from Bumrah and Arshdeep, when the new batters were in, it was just foregone conclusion. Like Maharaj couldn't get a bat on ball. He ended up 2 off 7 balls, which is not going to help.
yeah.
um,
And like the Miller wicket for Pandya was less Pandya, more Sky with
ridiculous catch.
incredible fielding
Yeah,
and
yeah. Like if it had gone for 6, then it could have been on,
yeah,
and it was just tiny moments in the game. Like they practice those kind of catches so much, obviously, but whenever you just see one in that kind of in that scenario, in that bubble, that pressure, that is the World Cup in the game, and they're just very special moments, and that's you got a player of the quality of Miller, and then to take that catch as well is just brilliant, and that's the top level of the game as opposed to kind of the stuff we've seen before in this tournament. So that's why you want to watch international cricket, why it's good. But yeah, it was just a bit. I think the game had already gone by that point, but I
yeah,
guess the sixth then would have been interesting. So yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it was only 7 runs, but I do think when it was 20 off 2, the game was done. Um, but it's just interesting 2020 cricket that you can pinpoint so many tiny little moments that changed the game, like the last over of India's innings going for about 10 runs plus or whatever it was. Um, Quinton not going on, that Klaasen wicket, that Sky catch, those Bumrah overs. It's just tiny little things just completely changed the narrative of it all, and it was just a good game that
yeah,
because it's the pendulum was always going back and forth, and you didn't quite know who was ahead and who was not until probably that Klaasen wicket.
yeah. Like it's like looking at the 15th over when Bumrah came on, like South Africa did incredibly well to force Rohit hand to bowl
Yeah.
him.
Hmm.
But then Rohit can still choose not to bowl him
Yeah.
and be like, keep him in reserve for those like 18th and 20th overs.
Yeah.
But if you get to that point and South Africa are well in charge, then bowling Bumrah is not going to be that important. But like it feels like a very strange turning point in that South Africa were in top at the moment,
Yeah.
but
And
they
forced the hand.
forced India to do the best thing they could have done in that moment, which
Yeah.
led to them losing. It's just a
Yeah.
weird kind of turning point.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah, I'd agree. It's well. Also, I think I would say a shout out to Rowett as well in terms of the captaincy. The fact that obviously you had to turn to Bumrah in that over, but when Pandya got the wicket of Klaasen in the over after, he could have very easily be like, "Oh, I'll hold back Bumrah now
Mhm.
because we've now got Klaasen out." But then he bowled Bumrah again in the 17th, and then he gets Janssen out. Like a lot of other captains be like, "No, we'll still save him. We'll bring on Arshdeep or something." I think that was just real testament to Bumrah to be like, "No, we're going to win the game now. This is where we're going to win it and
Yeah,
just kill it." And I think. it left Pandya to bowl the last over, and I don't think, like we said, I don't think he got through for, but I don't think he bowled amazingly, and that could have, if he was, having to defend less, then it might have gone a different way. Um, but the fact that Bumrah bowled out before then, won them the game before then, in the same way that Klaasen should have won the game in the 15th over, um, and just see it out. But yeah, I think credit to Rohit there for going for Bumrah definitely.
Yes.
Yay. um, but yeah, I don't really have much else to say. It was good to watch a good game of cricket, close game of cricket, good skills on both sides. Kohli was player of the match, and Jasprit Bumrah was player of the tournament. Um, can't really argue with that. Bumrah finished with 15 wickets, which is pretty good. Um, I don't think I've got the actual stats ahoy, what he averaged and stuff, but I'm pretty sure when he came on to bowl, he was only going at 4 runs and over across the tournament or something like that, which is just ridiculous for 2020. Um, and just all around, they've been a good team. In the New York section, they played Siraj for the America games, and then when it came to the West Indies, they swapped in for Kuldeep, so they assessed the conditions and changed really well in a way that other teams might not. Like Siraj went for less than a runner ball in the America leg, but then didn't bowl a ball in the West Indies leg. Um, so that's kind of just testament to they know what their best team is in conditions. Um, quite a bold call to bat Pant at 3 as well after such a long time out of the game, and that you'd say that's probably come off pretty well. And then someone like Axar Patel doing well. It just all came together. Everyone said they were probably favourites this tournament, and they've won the tournament. Whether or not they had conditions in favour or they knew where they're going to play a semi-final, I don't think any of that matters because you've still got to win the games, and they won every single game, which I think is also a first for T20 World Cup. Um, so yeah, GG's. Oh, breaking news.
Oh, good.
Kohli has retired from T20 internationals after winning the World Cup.
Yeah, it felt like he was waiting to win something to retire from something.
I think it's about time. Yeah, he's 35 now. He's 36 this year. Just a quick note on his stats then. I just saw so this is I've just got him ready. So he played 125 T20 internationals for India, obviously. And he scored 4,188 runs, a highest 122 not out, an average of 48.69, strike rate of 137, 138 50s. He made his debut back in 2010, so a 14-year career in 2020 cricket. Will probably go down as probably the greatest white ball player, I'd say, for India. Rohit will probably not far behind. Sachin probably will still say overall, but I think in white ball cricket, those stats in 2020 and then one day cricket as well are just phenomenal.
Shout for Dhoni as well, maybe, but
Only, yeah,
I
it's
think
just,
there'd be
yeah.
more shouts for Kohli.
Mhm.
Like it's the
Kohli,
perfect
Kohli.
occasion and score and result for him to retire on as well.
Exactly, yeah. It makes complete sense. And yeah, not many other players will ever match those numbers, I don't think. Um, yeah. And then there's the Champions Trophy next year, which he may use that to bow out from ODI cricket, which he currently averages 58 after 292 games. So pretty good there as well. So yeah, GG's Virat. Well done on your player of the match. Um, but yeah, that's about it, I think. That's all I've got.
Yeah,
Anything else from the game or the World Cup in general?
good final.
Good
The
final.
best two teams, most
Yeah,
competitive score. Um, I wish the rest of it was more like it,
yeah, pretty much.
and I wish the second group stage wasn't a thing and was more memorable, and I would not forget
Yeah,
about it because half the games are at 1:30 in the morning, but that's fine.
yeah, brilliant stuff. Um, yeah, cool. We'll be back in the T20 World Cup verse in 2 years' time, um, when it's in India. And then there's a Champions Trophy in what, early next year. Who cares? And next up is Test matches, which is in just over a week or whatever. Um, it doesn't stop. Uh, but yeah, good World Cup in bits. Um, but a better final than the thing overall. Um, yeah. If people want to find us for our test match stuff, where can they find us, Jamie?
Just not Crick Pod, not to be confused with another podcast by a former cricketer
Oh gosh.
that well, I don't think you have beef. I have beef, but that's fine. We're not. I'm over it. Who cares? It's just
Yeah.
it's just not Crick Pod. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, podcast places.
Yeah. I would also think when you're deciding on a name of a podcast, when you do your research, and then two, when you see that of a podcast name, you wouldn't also copy and do a strike through for one of the words. But that's just me.
Like I Googled their podcast name, and
Yeah.
our podcast is the eighth and the ninth result.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's not hard, is it?
yeah, and like I don't think Google results even has like pages anymore. You just keep
Just
scrolling
keep scrolling. Yeah.
and be observant.
Yep. Yep. Doesn't make much, does it?
Yeah.
You can probably work it out if you just search, you'll find out who it is. It doesn't matter. But yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
I'm really
listening.
holding in go fuck yourself. I mean, I've said it, but I'm not going to say the name.
The preface for their podcast, just so we don't get into any crazy drama. I think the context of what they do for their podcast is very, very good in
Yeah,
terms
look,
of the context and stuff that they're doing the podcast for. Great. Those kind of conversations need to happen.
and
But
the
I just
actual
think,
people doing the podcast,
yeah, great.
top people.
Brilliant. And they've got great guests, which help because they're in the game. We are not.
But
But
get off our turf.
yeah, maybe just research names of podcasts before you start one of your own. Anyway, thank you, T20 World Cup. Thank you, India, I guess, and Indian fans who listen to this, which I'm sure there'll be a couple. Um, we'll be back in a few weeks, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, might as well do more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, see you then.
All right. Don't have anything funny to end off
I
today.
don't know.
Uh,
I'm drained from this World Cup.
yeah, right.
Bye bye.